It was supposed to be a fun-filled night. My husband and I had been invited to a party, one of those informal get-togethers with close friends that we often attended. The evening began like any other, with everyone in high spirits, drinking and catching up on the usual gossip. The house was beautifully lit, the music was perfect, and the air was buzzing with excitement. But I didn't know that tonight would turn into something much more intense, filled with emotions I hadn't even imagined. As the night wore on, the conversation began to shift. The laughter grew louder, the drinks kept flowing, and I noticed a special energy in the room. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but there was something different about the way my husband and his friends were acting. The banter was a little more flirtatious, the glances exchanged lingered longer. And the tension in the room was almost palpable. At first, I dismissed it, thinking it was just the alcohol loosening everyone up, but I soon realized there was something more. At one point, my husband and his friends gathered in a corner, whispering to each other. I didn't pay much attention, thinking it was just an inside joke, or perhaps a plan to surprise us with some mischief, but when they returned, I noticed a change in their behavior. My husband approached me smiling, but there was something in his eyes that unsettled me. "We're going to try something new tonight," he said in a calm but firm voice, before I could ask what he meant. The other men in the room began to approach their wives and girlfriends, suggesting the same thing. It took me a moment to process it, but when I did, my heart began to pound. They wanted to swap partners. The idea was outrageous, something I'd never even considered, but around me I saw the women's faces, a mixture of surprise, hesitation, and curiosity. I felt a rush of emotions, confusion, fear, excitement, and even a strange sense of curiosity. My mind raced with thoughts of what this would mean for my marriage, for my relationship with my husband. It was something he'd longed for. He'd been hiding this vision from me. And most importantly, why was I even considering it? The room seemed to grow quieter as each couple processed the suggestion. Some of the women seemed as surprised as I was, while others appeared intrigued. My husband didn't pressure me, but his eyes were on me, waiting for my reaction. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to run away from this madness, but another part of me, perhaps the part that had always longed for something exciting, something different, was tempted to see how far this would go. The first couple to agree was a surprise. They simply nodded, stood up, and approached another couple. It happened so quickly, without much conversation, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Suddenly, the room felt even smaller. The air felt thick, and I couldn't breathe. I looked at my husband, searching for some comfort, some explanation. But all I saw was anticipation. He leaned in and whispered, "Only if you want to." It was my decision. I realized he wasn't forcing me, but the mere fact that he was open to this, that he was even suggesting it, made me question everything. I wanted to go through with it. I could handle the consequences. What would this mean for us? One by one, the couples began to swap partners. The room had transformed into something far more intimate, far more intense than I could ever have anticipated. My hands trembled as I watched, unsure what to do. But then something unexpected happened. One of the men, a friend of ours, approached me. He was always charming, always kind, but that night he looked at me in a way he never had before. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. His voice cut through the noise in my head. I felt it, though I wasn't sure if I was. He offered me his hand, and I hesitated for a moment before taking it. There was no turning back now. I felt my husband's gaze on me as I stood up. But I couldn't hold his gaze. My heart was pounding as I let myself go. The room seemed to spin around me. We found a quieter corner, away from everyone else. And for a moment, everything calmed down. I could still hear the laughter, the clinking of glasses, but now it felt distant. My husband's friend was calm and gentle. Even he wasn't rushing me, he wasn't pressuring me. We talked for a while about nothing in particular. We just chatted a bit to ease the tension. But then the conversation stopped and the air between us grew thicker. He placed his hand on mine, and for a moment I felt a spark. It was wrong, I knew it, but at that moment I didn't care. I let myself get lost in the sensation, in the heat of the moment. His lips met mine gently at first, then with more urgency. I felt a flood of emotions. Guilt, desire, confusion. My mind told me to stop, but my body was reacting to the situation in a way I didn't expect. I thought about my husband and what I was doing at that very moment. And that thought stirred a strange emotion within me. Was this what he wanted? Was this some kind of test? Or had we simply opened a door neither of us could close? The night dragged on, and in a whirlwind of emotions, I found myself entangled in a situation I never imagined. I was surrounded by people who were just as caught up in the heat of the moment. It was exciting, confusing, and terrifying all at once. And as the night drew to a close, I couldn't help but wonder what morning would bring. The party was over, but the feelings weren't. As we drove home in silence, I couldn't look at my husband. He didn't say a word. His eyes were fixed on the road, but I could feel the tension between us. What had we done? What had we become? When we finally got home, the reality of what had happened began to surface. We sank into despair. We didn't talk about it. We didn't mention the party or the swap. We just went to bed. Lying side by side in the darkness, the weight of the night pressing down on us. I wanted to ask her how she felt, if she regretted it, but I couldn't find the words, so we lay there in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. The days that followed were strange. We avoided the subject, both pretending nothing had happened, but the tension was always there. Just beneath the surface, every time we looked at each other, I could see the questions in his eyes, and I knew he saw the same in mine. It wasn't until a week later that we finally talked about it. One night, after dinner, we sat down, and my husband asked me the question I'd been dreading: "Do you regret it?" I didn't know how to answer. I regret it. Part of me did. Guilt had been gnawing at me since that night, and I knew things would never be the same between us. But another part of me, the part that had been excited, that had felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in years, couldn't regret it. I don't know. I admitted quietly. He nodded, and for a moment I thought he'd leave it at that, but then he surprised me. "I don't regret it," he said softly, and my heart skipped a beat. I stared at him, surprised by his words. How could he not be sorry? How could he be okay with what had happened? He took a deep breath and continued. "It wasn't what I expected, but it made me realize something. We'd been stuck in a rut for so long. That night, strange as it was, reminded me how much I long to be with you. How much I love you. I don't need anything else, just you." My eyes filled with tears when I heard him say that. I was so afraid that what happened would tear us apart, but there he was, telling me that it had made him love me even more. "I love you too," I whispered. And for the first time since that night, I felt a sense of peace. The road ahead wasn't easy. We had to rebuild trust and overcome the emotions that night had stirred up, but in the end, we came out stronger. The experience, as strange and unexpected as it was, opened our eyes to what truly mattered. Looking back, I realized that night wasn't just about swapping partners, but about confronting our fears, our desires, and our relationship. It forced us to communicate in a way we hadn't in years, to face the truth about ourselves in our marriage. And while it was a night I'll never forget, it's also a reminder that love is complicated, messy, and full of pitfalls, but as long as we have each other, we can overcome anything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more. Thank you for being part of this journey with me.